Welcome to Soñamos, Through the Eyes of Immigrants. I'm your host, Angelina Alfaro, the Director for Health and Wellness at the Center for Immigrant Progress, and I'm honored to welcome you into this space where our stories matter, our voices matter, and humanity takes center stage. The word Soñamos means to dream, and that's exactly what this podcast is for. Each episode, we will highlight individuals' journeys and stories that remind us of perseverance, community, and purpose. Whether you're an immigrant, a child of an immigrant, or someone who simply believes in human connection, we invite you to listen with an open heart and mind. Welcome to Soñamos. Today, I'm honored to welcome our guest, Jesús Ruiz, the Dean of the Lakeshore campus at the College of Lake County. Jesús' story is one of resilience, determination, and purpose. As a previous undocumented immigrant, he navigated through barriers many of us would find overwhelming. Yet through perseverance, education, and purpose, Jesús became the first Latino dean in the history of the College of Lake County. Under his leadership, the Lakeshore campus has accomplished remarkable success, including the highest student GPA rate, the lowest student dropout rate, and some of the strongest student success stories across the institution. Jesús is a leader deeply committed to students, community, and access to opportunities that help transform his own life. We welcome Jesús to Soñamos.
Thank you so much, Angelina, for this opportunity. I am so happy I'm here, and I could not be happier that we are having this conversation.
Same. I'm happy to get to know you today and ask some of these deeper questions. And so to start off, Jesús, could you please share with our audience a little bit about who is Jesús Ruiz?
Gosh, I think like any other individual, there's layers to who Jesús is. I believe primarily I'm a Latino, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm an uncle, I'm a dean, lifelong learner. But aside from all of those pieces, I am someone who believes deeply in the transformative power of education, community, and empowerment. I truly believe that education transforms lives, communities, and families throughout our world.
Yeah, thank you so much. And can you share some of those experiences from your childhood and upbringing and maybe some of the values your family instilled
Absolutely.
in you and guide your life and leadership?
Sure. So I was born in Mexico, in Guanajuato. I lived in Guanajuato till I was about 10 years old. I grew up in a family full of love with my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts. My father, however, was not in the picture until later in my life. He, at a very young age, began coming to the U.S. to work as an undocumented worker. And so he spent a lot of that first couple of years of my life sending money back to our family, taking care of us, making sure that we had what we needed to have a good life in Mexico. And so that space of that paternal figure space was taken up by my grandfather. So my grandfather has an interesting story of his own. He's no longer with us, but he was actually in a wheelchair since the age of 30. He lost his ability to move in a rodeo back in those days. Okay. But from his wheelchair, he had a business. And he had cattle in the back of our house, in the backyard of our house. And what really kind of cemented in me that community feeling was the fact that I went around all of the state of Guanajuato selling fruits and vegetables in the back of a pickup truck with my grandfather.
Yes.
So I was 3-4 years old, and I got to experience this sense of community. You know, he would drive around. He would have, of course, a driver that would take him around all these little towns in Guanajuato, selling this stuff from the back of a pickup truck. And I got to experience what kind of friendships he made, the kinds of connections he made, and the value of those public relations lessons as a little kid.
100% relate. Yeah. Not having an immigrant story, but my father being a migrant worker taught me all of that as well. So I was selling fruits and vegetables at my corner driveway, just like a lemonade stand. But some of those community values and collaboration and stuff is certainly what leads my work as well.
Yeah, I mean, just if you can imagine this man in a wheelchair doing all these things, making those connections, finding ways to support his family that way, just created in me this idea that everything is possible and your circumstances do not dictate your future.
Absolutely. And can you share how some of those values and stuff supported your immigrant journey and coming into this country and your story?
Absolutely. So the family values, of course, I think we share them with a ton of other immigrant communities in the U.S. You know, that sense of family, the sense of responsibility, the sense that we are here because someone else sacrificed something for us to be here. The value of giving back, the value of saying, I am here, but I owe it to these people that invested in me, that believed in me, and it is my duty to give back. Yeah. The value of education. My father did not go to high school. My mother barely finished the third grade. Yeah. But all throughout my life, they reminded me quite often that education is a piece of you that cannot be taken away. They saw education not just as an economic opportunity, because absolutely it opens the doors to economic opportunities, but they also saw it as a way of empowering us, as a way of giving us tools to sit at a table and make decisions. And perhaps more importantly, to make a path for those that are coming after us, to make it easier for them to achieve what it's been so tough for us to do.
Yep. My father, the same, born in America, but from an immigrant family, started school at 9, not knowing English, and didn't complete high school, and worked hard for our family to give me the opportunity to be able to sit here today and have this conversation. And so what sacrifices throughout your journey did you experience?
Oh boy. I think one of the early sacrifices was certainly not having my dad at a very young age. The fact that I had to leave everything behind in Mexico when I moved to the U.S. I left family, I left friends, I left a lifestyle. Of course, that is a huge sacrifice. In my later years, I think as you embark into these academic journeys, you sacrifice friends, you sacrifice time with family, you sacrifice a lot of the experiences that many traditional teenagers had the luxury of doing.
Sure.
I could not do that because I had so much to lose if I strayed away from a path that was already determined. I needed to go to college. I needed to succeed and show my brothers, my sister, that it could be done. Yes. So a lot of it, I think, the sacrifices, of course, our time and our the ability to enjoy some of those things that every child should be able to.
Yeah, and turning those challenges and sacrifices into
Absolutely.
strengths. And so what do you feel is like your life purpose, using those strengths and utilizing that to continue to move in life?
I think our purpose in life is determined by many factors. Yes, our individual desires and our individual achievements, but also what the people around us kind of need and pushes us to become. In my case, I think my purpose throughout the vast majority of my life in Lake County has been to open opportunities for others. I worked at other institutions of higher learning, Rosalind Franklin University, for example, for a very long time. And one of the proudest moments of my life was changing the number of 5 Latino and African American students into medical schools to 15, 17, 23 students being able to attend medical school. And so I really fell in love with that empowerment, that ability to impact others and make their paths a viable path for them.
Yeah, and that is probably your why, right? Why you do the job you do. For me, I want to see and be able to give my voice and my skills and my language to the next generation, and creating those opportunities for them to sit in my seat.
Absolutely.
And so would you say that's your why, or what
yes.
is your...
As a dean over at College of Lake County, I work with students that many times coming to the classroom scared. First time walking in an institution of higher learning, adult learners that have a family and have a job and are sacrificing their time with them to learn the language or learn a skill that is going to make them better, have better opportunities out there. And working with them and seeing that fear kind of vanish little by little as they get more comfortable.
Yeah.
And many of them graduate after, a couple of years with not just a certificate, an associate's degree out of our college, and change their perspective on life.
Yep.
That is definitely one of those callings and those things that gives me the most joy.
Yeah, I want to say a lot of the work I do in community is to advance students in the next generation into college. And so a lot of the needs that I saw that were required, like, I always say we can get somebody to the moon, but we can't just leave them there. We have to be able to walk with them on the moon and teach them how to walk on the moon.
Yeah, and not only I think is it our duty, because as professionals we have a duty to give back, but it's also a challenge to change systems, to change the way that these systems are supporting our community and supporting our students.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of my biggest dreams is that I'll have the opportunity to change an institution from the inside out, and we've been doing that at College of Lake County.
Yes.
But there's still bigger things that need to change outside of our college. Higher education on its as it is needs to change and embrace the fact that our Latino students are becoming a majority at hundreds of institutions throughout the country.
Yes.
And although they're becoming a majority, how can we change to serve them better? And I think that is kind of the next step.
Yeah, and I, as I'm witnessing the changes happening at CLC, as a community leader, moving students to education is one of my goals. And some of the institutional changes I've seen you implement with navigators in the college and people to walk alongside the students have been some of my dreams as I'm like in the transition with students to the college. So I see the impact that's making at the school. And what did it mean to become the first Latino dean at the College of Lake
So
County?
I actually didn't realize that I was the first Latino dean when I got the job. That actually came to my attention through a student. This was a student that was working on our student-run newspaper and took it on his own to do a little research. And one day he calls me and says, "Hey, we are doing a story on you. Were you aware that you're the first Latino dean at the college?" And it took me a little bit by surprise. Not a whole lot, I'll say, but it did surprise me because, hey, we are living in Lake County and we have a huge representation of Latinos here. So it was an honor. Of course, it was an honor to be that first Latino, but it also came with a lot of responsibility. As the first Latino, people are going to be looking at you. People are going to be seeing what your leadership is like and whether you are a good fit. And out of that, they are going to create an expectation for those that are coming after you. I am happy to say that today we have 3 deans at the College of Lake County that are Latino.
That's amazing. Amazing work.
Yes.
And I would say, like, when you're leading in your work, and are you using some of your experiences to know how to make those changes systemically of your personal experience as a student and such that has come into some of the systems?
Absolutely. I think we all bring our life experience into our work sites, right? We all bring that knowledge, that cultural wealth with us into our workspaces. Many times I walk into classrooms and I don't just see students in there. I see my dad. I see my brothers. And that connection, that ability to connect directly with their experiences is very powerful because I was them one day. And that same expectation or that same realization that I was them one day, I want them to look at me and say, I can be him later on. And so it goes both ways.
Yep, and turning those challenges into strengths and then being able to use that from a systemic perspective of like, hey, I know what it was like. I
Yes.
know what I need. I know
Yes.
what these students need to be successful.
Oh, yes.
And in turn, now you have the highest GPA rates, the lowest dropout rates. And what do you attribute some of that success to?
So there's a couple of things. We started running the numbers 2 years ago, and we started realizing that the Lakeshore campus was an outlier. That we had high GPA numbers, that we had the best success rate of all three campuses, that we had the lowest rate of dropouts in our classrooms, but we were still not in a place to say why. And that is the next step. We have to determine the why, and we're working on that. But if you ask me, Jesus, as the dean, an individual, what can you attribute that to? A couple of things. One is you create a campus that is welcoming. That's the first step. That's the first image that a student gets when they walk into your door. They realize as soon as they walk in, whether you are interested in their education, whether you can serve them, and whether you have invested enough in them to make them successful. So having a brand new building, having staff that speaks their language, and having just bilingual signage throughout, welcoming them and supporting them is one piece. The other piece is we are determined to bring cultural events into our campus, making sure that culture is celebrated and seen as a plus, not a deficit.
Exactly.
Your culture, your language, our abilities, and give you knowledge that is valid in the academy. And so we celebrate those things with passion, and we integrate that into everyday life at Lakeshore. I think those two pieces, and of course, we have faculty, and I'll be very honest with you. When you think of Waukegan, certain things come to mind. And it's the same thing with faculty. When faculty realize that their position is going to be teaching in Waukegan, they immediately form this vision of what it's going to be like. A lot of people, once they learn that their position will be in Waukegan, are hesitant. But those that come and actually teach in Waukegan, it's because they want to be there.
They're committed.
They have a passion, and they're committed to those students. And so I think those are three things that are definitely impacting those rates in CLC.
So important, I think, to give the students inclusivity and purpose, and knowing that they belong and have value at the table is important. It makes people want to do more. And so when you reflect on your journey, what fills you with like some of the greatest satisfaction, considering everything happening at the school and all the success?
Sure.
What do you think is some of your greatest satisfactions within that?
There's probably three things that I can think of. I started my public service career at the Lake County Health Department. And my job there was to work with communities of color, both Latino and African American communities in Waukegan, Zion, and North Chicago. It fills me with pride to remember those days and think how well I was able to connect and understand the African American community within those areas. Because as a Latino, of course, I have that knowledge, but I was lacking that connection to our African American brothers and sisters. And so that first job gave me the opportunity to get to know their stories and to get to know them personally, understand that they are so similar, their needs are similar to ours. And so that desire to have that work happen hand in hand has been part of my dreams ever since. The second piece is being able to change the institution at Rosalind Franklin and bring more Latino students in was another piece. I wanted to be a doctor. I don't think I've mentioned that back in those days. And of course, my path kind of diverted a little bit. I ended up not being able to do that. But I didn't become a doctor, but I helped 30 other doctors become one. And so I'm very happy about that. I think the other big achievement of my career has been the change at Lakeshore. The fact that we now have a fantastic building that is supporting our students. We are building another one, the urban farm that is coming to Lakeshore. That's another great achievement. And yes, those are buildings, those are tangible things. But the experiences and the support we're providing these students to change their lives and their realities is just something that will never be surpassed.
Yeah, and that would be, what would you consider is like, would be your legacy that you want to leave behind?
I hope that is part of my legacy, the fact that we are creating an environment where our students are welcomed and we meet them where they are while providing the tools necessary for them to succeed. I think for
Yes.
many years, people saw our college as a last resort. And I think the work we are doing now is paving the path for CLC to become the college of choice and the smart choice, not because it's a last resort, not because it's cheaper, not because I have no other
That's where I
option,
need-
but because that's the best option for me.
Exactly. That's beautiful work. And looking back at your younger self, if he could see what you're doing today, what would you say?
I don't think I would believe that. I'll tell you that as a kid, I walked around the downtown area and I saw College of Lake County, and I saw it as a closed building where nothing really happened. If you would have told me back then, you're going to be leading this institution when you're older, I never would have believed it. I said, oh my God, I don't think that's true. First of all, because I never thought of myself being in academia the way that I am. I wanted to be, a doctor, a lawyer, or any, something else. But I think the younger self would be well served by getting some advice, and some of that advice is believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You know more than what you think you know, and you're capable of more than what you think you're capable of.
Yeah, and I believe like having leaders like yourself or other representation in community is a strong empowerment for our community to advance them. And
You mentioned something very important, Angelina, and sorry if I interrupted, but
it's okay.
You mentioned community, and we keep mentioning it quite often. As I was developing as a young student, community was part of who I was, and it's so important for us in any position to remember that. I remember when I got this job at College of Lake County, I remember some wise words that a friend of mine said, if you have your community's back, your community has your back. And as I was interviewing for the job, I remember a room full of community members and people that supported me back then. And I'll be vulnerable with you because I think it's important for people to understand this.
Yes.
I was competing with people that had doctorate degrees. I had a master's. I had very little experience managing an institution that size. But it was community and it was leaders that believed in me that gave me the opportunity to be where I am.
Yeah.
And so whenever I have an opportunity at the table to believe in people and give them that little benefit of a doubt and say they're capable of doing it, even though they think they're not.
Yeah.
And I would say 90%, 99% of the time, they prove me right. They are capable.
Yeah, and everybody needs that person to champion them and be the voice and an example of leadership that they can strive to become. And so looking forward and looking into the future, what dreams do you still have for yourself?
So I am working on my PhD right now. I am hoping that I'll be defending in September. Knock on whatever this thing is.
You will be defending.
So I definitely want to get those 3 letters after my name for a couple of reasons. One, there's not a huge number of Latinos with those degrees. And I've made it kind of my personal goal to be part of that group. Not because it makes you an elite, but because it's completely the contrary. It allows people that are well-grounded to get that degree and have a voice at the table. Yeah. Higher education is kind of a different animal in many respects, right? Yeah. And those 3 letters give you credibility. Those 3 letters give you power, give you, respect at the table. Yeah. And I think it's so important for more Latinos to have that, to be able to represent those voices where decisions are being made. Absolutely. And so for me, those 3 letters will represent that, but they will also represent the opportunity to gain new skills and think critically and conduct research and be able to change the reality of my campus and my institution with it.
And also be an example for the next generation, right?
Absolutely.
And so I often think about what gives me hope and what gives me purpose. And for me, it's always the next generation. What can I pass down? What can I share with the next generation? And so what gives you hope for our next generation?
Mira, I do a lot of tours at CLC, and I get little ones from fifth graders to high schoolers. And I had a group of students that came in from a local high school, or Latinos. And I remember, giving them a presentation and asking for questions. And when I asked for questions, oh my gosh, they were trying to hide behind each other. It was so difficult for them to, gain their space and ask questions and feel empowered. And I gave them the advice, and I said, aunque calladito te veas más bonito, you have to speak up. You have to be noticed. You have to leave your mark anywhere you walk through. And so a couple days later, I got fifth graders into that same tour. Oh my gosh. They asked questions, they were interactive, and I said, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Perhaps my high schoolers weren't asking, they weren't comfortable, but look at these fifth grade and sixth graders. They're fantastic. They were all Latinos. They were all asking the right questions. And I could see that fire in them. It reminded me so much of who I was. And I just continue to tell myself, we are going to be fine. These people have it in them.
I believe that in giving youth a voice and giving them a platform to speak and hear their organic voices and feelings is so important, because there's value and worth for us to listen to that generation as well.
Absolutely.
As leaders, and take that and shape their visions and shape their stories into something bigger.
The world is completely different than it was 20 years ago. And even 10 years ago. It's changing rapidly. And so as educators, yes, you have all this knowledge, you have all these things that are supporting your mission, but listening to what's going on in those younger generations, what their passions are, what their fears are, allows you to target them, allows you to clear a pathway and make their lives a little easier.
And give opportunity.
Yes.
So I want you to, as we start to close this conversation, I want you to imagine if there was a young immigrant student listening right now to what we're talking about, who feels maybe invisible, uncertain, and discouraged. What would you say to that child and that individual? What do you think they would want to hear today from you?
I think it's important for every individual out there to know that your voice matters, that your experiences, your language, your culture are not deficits. They are something to be celebrated. Your situation today does not dictate your future. Your destiny is written by you. And so it's so important for them to believe in themselves and to find those allies. For a very long time throughout my life, I carried burdens by myself. And I hardly asked for help. I learned in later years that, asking for help is part of life. Seeking those people that believe in you, seeking those people that can give you a little push is so important. Creating those connections are so important. So don't carry the burden by yourself. Find your teacher, find that coach, find that individual that believes in you, and ask for help. They will be thrilled to be that mentor, I am sure.
Find your community, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that is the whole purpose of Soñamos, is to give a voice, to give purpose to our community, to empower our community with the skills and the opportunities, and giving access through these conversations so they feel that they too have a voice. So I thank you today for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story and vulnerability. And I welcome for our next episodes for everybody to please check in. And thank you for joining us today with Soñamos.